That happened with an agenda packet
Yeah.
once.
So I just, hopefully this time it's sent. Let me check my.
Yeah, there was a Saturday, I'm like, Greg, where's the agenda? He's like,
I sent it, I know I sent it.
I didn't get it yet.
Fortunately, the draft was, I could get on my phone.
Yeah, always give it like an extra 15 seconds after hitting send before you close the lid.
Did you get it?
Let's see.
Well, you can't answer the first one because it's too late,
Now I got it.
but if I can get it later.
Yeah,
All right.
So you let us know when you were on YouTube.
we are on YouTube.
Okay.
So let me,
Stacey, I'll send you the resolution.
Recording in progress.
okay, we are ready to go when you are there.
Great, thank you. Welcome back to the Chatham Township Committee meeting of May 12th. We're returning to the public session. We're going to start with the flag salute, please, so please rise. We have the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll now open the first hearing of citizens. Mr. LeConte, would you please provide guidance?
Members of the public are now welcome to come up to the microphone to address the Township Committee. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearings tonight. Those present may step up to the microphones to be heard. If you are watching via Zoom, you may speak during any of the public comment sessions by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you are recognized to speak, please mind the following procedures. Please say your name, spell your last name, and give the name of your street. You do not need to give your street number. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, the Township Committee will wait until you finish speaking before responding. There are 2 public comment sessions on tonight's agenda. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment of up to 3 minutes during each public comment period. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments, and duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full according to guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services. And Mayor, we did not receive any written comments for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Are there any hands raised online?
We do not have any hands raised.
Okay, and seeing no hands raised in the audience, we can close the first hearing of citizens. Okay, we'll move on to reports. Mr. Shahani, would you please lead us through the reports?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I would like to, if I could, start with our engineer, since he is here and we came out earlier. Mr. Rushdie is here excuse me, to answer any questions on the report if there are any. Didn't receive any though, but he's here if you would like. And also, just for us to briefly talk about roads this year. So before we get to roads, anything on the report? No? Okay, so I'll tee up roads. So around this time, we're talking about capital. The capital is on the budget, on the agenda for workshop, where the goal is to introduce capital at the next meeting. As part of our operating budget, we put approximately $500,000 in the capital improvement fund, in addition to all the other requests that would partially account for also down payment for any borrowing for the capital ordinance that's included in here. A number of roads that we had envisioned. John typically prepares a memo for that. We present it after the capital is introduced and adopted, and then we move ahead with that. John's memo would have covered a few roads, but given the limitations of the budget this year, we were focusing on roads with grants and using old capital funds to pave roads this year. So that's why there wasn't a specific line item in this capital budget for roads, because we've had, thanks Greg, we have capital funds and grant funds to pave roads this year. John's here because he and I were talking at our last meeting about whether it would even be wise to pave any roads this year, given some of the national and global factors. So, John.
Yeah, under the New Jersey Public Contract Law, contractors are entitled to asphalt adjustments pricing and also fuel pricing. And we typically go through the Morris County Co-op. And so when you look at the adjustments that are necessary, you look at when the bids were received for the co-op, which was December, where asphalt and fuel prices were very low, and you look at when you actually do the paving, and the DOT publishes an index for both commodities, and you do an equation, and it calculates what the surcharge that the contractor's entitled to. And so right now, we're looking at a pretty substantial surcharge for asphalt price and then for fuel, because there's certain items like milling that the contractor is entitled to it. So it just begs to question, is this going to be a year that we may want to pass on paving just because of the way the pricing is going? It could end up, because if the index goes up much higher, we're going to be paying a very substantial amount of surcharge for this fuel. The two roads that we were looking at, which are, feel that are really in poor condition, Huron was the top of the list. That's probably the worst road. We were actually looking at maybe breaking the road up into different phases because it's so long. But we're thinking that it really is breaking up in phases when that road, the entire road really is in poor condition. We're thinking about just that was really the only road that we were focusing on, within the area. But there was one other area, Mountain View, and it's Mountain View, when you look at the tax map, it's really, we were looking at the access road in the municipal building. This area right here from Myersville down to the corner section, it's just horrendous. The DPW is throwing a lot of patch down. We're throwing a lot of money down just to constantly fix potholes. So we thought that would be a good road.
And it's used heavily by the seniors.
Yep, and seniors. But we were also including not only the milling and paving, but also fixing the curbing along that line, because the curbing is horrendous. So we may want to move forward with the curbing.
Those two and River Road also.
Yes, yep. And then the third is River Road. We have a grant to do River Road, so we do have to. We have a certain grant. We have to bid that project out because of the type. We're doing some additional basin improvements and things. We may want to just authorize and go out the bid, get the pricing. Because the index, it's already going to be at the high index. By the time we go out the bid and receive it, it'll probably be based on the June index, and then pave in July. So the difference in price may not be that substantial. Although we may get high prices, we may just look at it and see, is the price reasonable? And the fact if the grant is going to cover most of the cost, we might as well move forward and just complete the project. Because it is in our best interest to when we're working with the DOT, they look at you very favorably when they receive these grants. They want you to spend the money. They don't want you to hold the money, hold it for a year, and then pave next year. They want you to move, and they're doing so. So it just puts us in a better light with when we submit our grant applications, that we have just a great track record that you give us money, we spend it, we do it, and we close the project and move. So we may want to just move forward with River Road, get the bids. If the bids come in really high, we can always go back and decide to, because we do have 2 years. It's not going to be like we have to construct it this year. It's just a good policy to do it this year if we could.
But just to clear, that grant that's the limit. They don't give us more money for it.
It's capped.
My concern is, I would prefer to bid that one first before we commit to doing any of the roads, because if there is an overage that we have to cover and we decide we do want to do it, that's going to limit how much more we can do elsewhere. So it would be informative to see what we're going to do with that road first. But I do think waiting, one, saves money, and at least, like you said, let's see where the bids land with River Road.
How much money are we talking about, percentage-wise of what's the order of magnitude?
It could be upwards of 20%. We'd be paying more.
And how much
So,
grant
yeah.
money?
The grant money is well over $200,000 that we have in grant money.
Of a budget of 500, that's what we were looking at?
No, we were looking more in the range of $350 in that range. We were looking at 500 this year. Yeah, we were cutting back. One thing we could also look at is if we move forward with River Road, curbing is independent of, because we do have curbing that we can implement under the Morris County Co-op. We may want to just do the curbing and set it up for next year, that we can do the curb portion. We won't get hit with a surcharge on the curbing. So we can do the curbing, just prep the road for next year to pave, and we can decide. Or because that road is not a substantial. the one caveat with the Morris County Co-op, or actually I should say with the public contract law, is that the surcharges for asphalt only kicks in when you use more than 1,000 tons of material. And so, it's a lot of material, but it's most roads will eat that up, with thing. The Mountain View, we're only looking at about 300 tons if we just do that alone, but under the Morris County Co-op, the contractors, they don't want to come into town for less than 1,000, because it's, just the economy of scale, and they can't honor that price that's so low without doing so. So I've had the experience. They're actually obligated to do it, but they know they just keep pushing you off, and before you know it, it's October, November. Oh, sorry, we missed it. We couldn't get to you. So that may be something that we probably will see how the pricing come in for River Road, and we can weigh that and see, maybe we want to just bid that out and do the curbing and the paving. We can decide that, see if that's an option also to consider.
It'll also give you a better idea of the order of magnitude you're talking about specifically.
Yeah.
Once you look at River Road and we know what the grant is, and wow, we're 30% higher than the
Yeah.
grant. It'll give you a direction that will inform us on what the expectation is for the others as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I think it's a good plan, get bids on River, with the understanding if they're within a tolerable range,
Yep.
utilize the grants. The only thing I'll add with respect to Huron is, Huron is part of the Turkey Trot route, and that gathers about 1,000 runners and a lot of families with babies and strollers that do the walk, the 1K walk.
Yeah.
So to the extent that the road is in such significant disrepair, to give that some added consideration.
Yeah.
We may not, at the end of the day, we may not mill and repave it, but perhaps there's some intermediary things that we do until prices come back to historically normal levels. But just something that I wanted to add in there
Yeah.
as a consideration for
Yeah.
Huron.
Yeah.
Before November, that's all.
Yeah, because frankly, if the numbers come back with River Road, reasonable, we can even, because the price differential is not going to be that great, because we're going to bid it right away and do the work. We can look at how the pricing comes in, and that maybe we go out to bid for the other roads instead of using the co-op, because that one is subject to that change, and maybe contractors are maybe more, because it's the asphalt is just one component. It's the pricing of the placement, and so if someone's sharpening their pencil, we might get a low price. So we can revisit that if once we get the pricing in.
So sorry, the prioritization, I'm hearing different things. I thought Mountain View was, so first it's River,
Correct.
Huron and Mountain View are
Huron,
kind of
the.
just money wherever money lands, but
Yeah.
Huron
Yeah.
was up there as actually like public municipal road that's, not
A
that
very,
Mountain View
it's a
isn't,
very
but-
substantial amount that we're
Yeah.
spending. That's a very long road.
Yeah,
It's a fraction of Mountain View. This side pavement, Mountain View is just a small fraction compared to Huron. Most of the funds we would utilize this year would go to Huron
so when you were saying, cause you said Mountain View's too small to be of interest.
for the co-op.
On its own.
Co-op.
On its own,
Yeah,
yeah,
on
on
its
its
own.
own.
Oh, so but you combine it with Huron as opposed to adding any other, anything connected to it? From a bid, I guess I got a little confused there.
No,
So
it's
Mountain View-
just the quantity of asphalt for the contractor to come into town.
Okay.
That's really what it comes down to. It doesn't matter the connection or where it is, it's just
Okay.
volume. For them to move around in town, they typically, it's an unwritten rule that if it's less than 1,000, you're gonna have a hard time trying to get this contractor to come in, because it's just the economy of scale. They give a price based on, they give a very good price, but it assumes that they're gonna just be pushing asphalt out that machine very quickly and get a lot of it done in a day, so.
So it's not necessarily a function of the job, it's the location? In other words, if we bundled,
Oh, yeah, no, if we bundle, well,
I mean, truck.
once we bundle and we're over 1,000, then it's.
Then you get the favored nations
Then
price.
you get their pricing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So just to recap, right, what we're, based on the discussion and the proposal is, given the fuel and asphalt costs right now and the possibility that that's gonna increase these costs substantially or significantly, the plan of action is we'll go out to bid for the River Road project, because we have to, because that's a state grant. We'll use that to assess how bad or good these adjustments could possibly be. And if it is, not a huge amount, but, not insignificant enough, we could still go with the co-op for Huron and Mountain View, or defer those, or decide to go out to bid for those based on the results of what happened with River Road. So we're kind of using River Road to gauge things before committing to doing any further paving this year because of just.
Yeah, and we do have the threshold that we're now looking at additional bonding. We have a set amount of money that we wanna utilize this year and not go over that, and so that may trigger some decisions on what we have with River Road and others.
What is the excess capital that you have available for the
I'm sorry?
additional, what is the excess capital, cause you said you're funding either
It would
through
be,
the grant or through the
I'll
excess
pull up,
capital?
it was, just under 400,000. So there was a cushion, there's always a cushion because there's also work that DPW does beyond just the paving, and so there's catch basins,
Yeah, fixing basins, doing other repairs.
Yeah,
They do-
Yeah.
so, we don't like to eat up the whole amount on just the paving, we always leave a little bit for anything else that comes up. And because sometimes, like, the first year I was here, we did have, I remember getting bills from John for other vendors that had surcharges, I think they came in like a year after, or some
Yeah,
number of
yeah,
months later, right?
Yeah,
So they do their calculations, and then like after the fact, a couple of months later, like, hey, by the way, this was the calculation for the surcharge, so I don't wanna eat it all up, and then we're getting this extra bill, and we were scrambling to find the money,
Mhm.
so it was good to leave a little cushion. I think we had just under 400,000.
Okay, thank you.
And there was a little bit more than that, but I've earmarked them for the Fairmont River Road intersection as well, right? Like some old capital money for road projects, anything else that comes up. So there was more than, I believe, 400, but I've already bookmarked an estimate from when John and I had talked about what he thought those
Yeah.
changes would cost. So we've got that, requisition, kind of just held, and financed.
Would there be any impact on, if I consider additional possibilities, on that, the 2014 Lafayette Road? Would that have to be any road repair, or is that just all off-road?
well, the beauty of that is that grant covers 100% of the cost, so if there's a surcharge, DOT's gonna cover it.
Yeah, because that's.
Even better.
Yeah, that's the beauty of those, those
Okay.
federal grants. They take
Okay.
forever to get through, but, they're
Gotta
paying,
give
they're
yourself
paying
about
100%.
15 years of
Yeah, 15 years. They've already had to increase it, because the grant was based on the, 2014 pricing.
It's
And
quadrupled
so,
in price.
it has, it's gone up substantially.
I did have a question about that, and one other thing on the report too. One was, I guess since you just brought up the Lafayette Spring is,
Mhm.
you have an estimate, hopefully start in the summer kind of mentality, but it hasn't been committed to yet. Do you know when you'll know and when?
There's a commitment from the contractor, we just haven't gotten a firm exact date. Is it going to
Okay.
be June? It's supposed to be right after school.
Okay,
So-
and
so-
then, and what's the timeline for completion ballpark? Like how long does that take?
He'll move rather quickly. He'll probably be done, by the end of August.
Okay.
Yeah, he moves rather quickly.
I think he had told us 2 months, right?
Yeah.
He had said about 2 months.
Yeah.
And then,
School's still in August.
and then including like, paving as part of the utilities and all that kind of stuff too, which from the breakup of Spring Street, but that includes the whole completion of the project as like.
Yeah,
ballpark?
they're only doing,
Just the
majority,
sidewalks, right?
just the sidewalks. The
Right.
majority is outside of the pavement. They do have some curb work, and they'll do the curb work, but they're not doing resurfacing or
They don't do
anything.
it,
It's
right.
just
That
sidewalks.
that will come after.
That'll come after, yeah.
Okay.
I think next year, or this year, we may apply for Lafayette as being the grant application for next year, so Lafayette might be targeted.
And then on the report also, same with Esternay, do you have a timeline, like in just a rough timeline, because it's not?
No, the author is, we just awarded the contract, so we're waiting to get the contract signed and the performance bond insurance certificate so we're in the process of scheduling that pre-construction meeting, but initially, the conversations I had with the contractor was thinking, he felt that he can knock it out in like 2 weeks. It's not that big of a project,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
we'll coordinate regarding when he starts. He'll probably, we're actually kidding around that we're just gonna delay signing the contract so he make sure he's outside of the season. He's doing it in July and just kind of outside of it, so
Right.
we'll just, you know,
Okay.
make sure you do it when there's not gonna, less disruption to any programs.
Right.
But we have, cause we were at this point last year celebrating getting this road installed, and there were paperwork delays, so we're good on all the paperwork?
Yeah, on the, we're good on all the paperwork on the,
Which road are you talking about?
he's back to Lafayette.
Sorry, I'm back to
Lafayette.
Lafayette.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
2014
Yeah, yeah,
grant.
we're back to
Yes,
that.
yeah, he's
Yeah, yeah.
signed everything's done with the state.
Yeah, that's, everything is going back and forth to the bitter end, but, we're told that he's starting,
I
so.
won't celebrate until
Yeah,
I see,
no, no.
them on the road there.
Well, what's interesting
I
is
won't make
that
that
all,
mistake again.
yeah, all that problem that we've had was really implementing the civil rights program, and you have to have certain amounts of W and MBE subconsole to do it. For this next round of 2016 grant, which we should be getting authorization to go out the bid for Shumpike soon, that's completely thrown out. The federal government took all that out, so we don't have to worry about the civil rights and the subcontractors, you know, prepare, because that's where we bid this project 4 or 5 times, because their subcontractors weren't filling out the civil rights forms properly. So throwing that out, we may just be bidding this once, and maybe that's next year. You know,
Okay.
we did not sign one. You know, what's disappointing is that the DOT will not look at the 2000, because the 2018 grant, we have a preliminary design, the DOT can start reviewing it, but they refuse to review it until 16 is started. So just, you know, it's just a horrible policy. You know, they really should have joined those 2 projects and pushed them together and just had it as one large project, but, you know, they just kept it separate. Because it's the same designer, that it's a DOT designer is designing the 2016, is designing the 2018. They could have been easily joined those together, but sometimes common sense doesn't prevail.
Okay.
I actually do have another question on a different subject on the report.
Shoot.
And because it's just a curiosity on the colony pool, your punch list.
Yes.
Does your punch list include, there was a panel missing on the touchboard for the.
That's not the contractor, that's
Oh.
Rich, and I thought I responded, somebody had
No.
emailed me about
Yeah, I
that.
asked.
No, Rich,
I
yeah,
thought
Rich,
yeah,
DPW
Steve
put that up, yeah.
Yeah,
So they put that up.
that was never there.
Oh,
It was never there, but I
That was
thought
never there, but they
DPW.
did put it there.
okay.
So that's what I'm saying, it has nothing to do with that project, it was not,
Oh, okay.
that was not part of
Okay.
their,
And that's the same thing with those, putting the volleyball nets in 8 feet of water?
they're in the same depth of water.
Are they?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not
Who
sure why.
emailed? Was it you? Somebody emailed
No, I
me.
emailed you about that.
Oh, I thought you
No,
responded.
they shifted
No.
horizontally at the same depth, so it
Yeah,
shouldn't be
okay.
deeper.
Yeah, they were just shifted over.
Oh, those comments made to me, so.
It was only a few feet,
And
and just
the-
kind of pushing it
The
away
person
from.
that made those comments also got the same answer from Rich, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, they painted the frog and they started filling the pool, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
They painted the frog.
No.
They painted the frog.
Kind of committed, yeah.
Yes.
So while we're on that topic, let me ask a question,
Okay.
because the other question I got, and I did send it to Z, but I just wanna make sure, it sounds like we're not gonna need the treads anymore, if you just confirm this for me, you know, remember those blue treads that used to be on the sidewalk?
And that's up to the colony pool, you know,
No.
if you want to put
I
that.
was just saying, John, no.
You don't need them, you don't need them
We
from
don't
the
need 'em
beginning,
because
they weren't
that was
encouraged to
part-
be used anyway.
Yeah, that's, based on, they were there because of the
Just
just,
no entry.
Yes.
there was no real entry,
Yeah.
and
So we
we
have
added
ladders
stairs,
on
we
both
added
sides, yeah,
stairs,
that's-
we've got railings, like, so they aren't needed, cause even, they shouldn't be entering from them, they should
Yeah.
be using them, so that's why when we were talking about this, you know, designing this, whole thing, that was the idea, was that we were gonna put more, so we added, was it 1 or 2 more entry points?
Two more.
Two more entry
more,
points, and improve the stairs, so that way,
Yeah, they should
There-
not
they should
have
not
to
be
install them.
Okay.
We don't
Okay, I
want
get
that.
that,
Yeah,
but
for
then,
their
you know,
kids.
kids are kids, yeah, they're gonna be running on those things, so you mentioned maybe the paint had
but
some
the
grit
paint
to it?
did, yeah, but
The,
from what-
the
it's
paint,
got
it
a
does have
grip
some sand in it,
Okay.
but still, it's slippery, you know, it's not gonna
with
be.
water and slime and all that stuff.
Yeah,
because-
it's just, the condition hasn't changed out there. We did it exactly the way the committee, the colony pool wanted it. We put the slopes back. We, you know, everything that we had with that concept, we did it, built it the way we said we were gonna build it.
Okay.
So, but that issue is still there. Kids jumping on the slopes.
They should not be.
It should not be, but, you
Yeah,
know.
so regardless of whether or not whether there's grit in the sand or, grit in the paint or we might have to put the treads on there, cause even though we don't want them on there, if we start having slip and falls, we're gonna have to think about putting those treads back, even though the intent was not to have them.
I think you just enforce
Yeah, it's just, you
don't
gotta
go,
enforce the rule,
don't
you're not
walk
supposed
on
to be
this,
doing it.
don't go on this.
Because if we're
Yeah,
doing
we
that,
just
then
gotta
we're just inviting them to use it.
Right, then
and
they're
the
gonna
idea
think
is
that
they
you are
shouldn't be
allowed.
using it. Yeah, we had, and that'll be for the operator, the manager, the lifeguards to say, no, you're not supposed to be there.
Yeah, we might wanna put some signs too, some little signs.
Paint it.
Yeah, or
Can
just
you
like
paint
put
it
some
on
You
the-
can
spray
say,
paint
yeah,
on
keep-
it.
I mean, it's painted nice blue, make it look
Yeah.
like it's part of the pool and
Yeah.
sort of inviting.
No, you
maybe.
can put
But
the,
even
you know,
on pools, I mean, put like, whether you put the depth, people will spray paint like the depth and things like that, or you just put like, you know, whether it's no diving, no walking, things like that on those, like black stencil letters.
Yeah, okay,
Whether the treads are there or not, if that's the intent, you should
Yeah.
Okay.
still have
Yeah.
that notice on there, so that's a good point, we'll put that.
Yep.
great.
And John, by the way, it's good news to hear that the wall's all done.
yeah,
As scheduled.
we were sweating, I have to admit, we were
So,
sweating.
kudos.
Because we had to, you know, because we were watching the weather very diligently, because we know that the paint had a certain amount of time it had to cure before we could start filling it. And then we had to fill it for a certain time so that we'd have to sample it before we're going, it was, you know, we were, you know, biting our teeth on that one, just, you know, biting our lip.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Well,
Yeah, yeah,
well done,
we
John.
got
So
it.
that's,
The
timing's
winter-
everything. when it comes to
It
this
was,
one, so.
it was. It was a good contractor, that's what I have to say. He was very responsive. He, as soon as we have a horrible winter, we were really hoping that he can get more done, but when the winter hit, it hit. He had to stop. But as soon as it started getting mild again, he was right there doing it. So, you know, luckily we got a good contractor.
Maybe, let me,
Right, anything else for John? Did you, do you wanna talk about River and Fairmont, the intersection anymore, or not? Not to belabor that, but like we were talking about.
Yeah, so, just very quickly, so I think part of, along with the redesign, as far as signage for that intersection, it appeared to me that we're gonna revert back to the original signage, which is, you know, the standard octagonal red stop signs, for the two, for, Fairmont
Yep.
/ Central. Everyone
And we
is-
can look at different
Yeah.
types of stop signs there, just a flashing stop sign or something along those lines. They're relatively, solar ones are relatively inexpensive, so we can look at that.
Yeah, I think that,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
additive and
Yeah,
sort of in the
absolutely.
spirit of making
Yeah.
that be a little more safer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Okay, good to
Thank
see
you.
everyone.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Thanks, John.
Starting from the top there, we'll. Under administration, for the next meeting, two resolutions are, anticipated and requested from you. One would be to authorize the RFP for affordable housing, that's for the, site next to the police department as part of our fourth round. We have discussed that. A draft was circulated. You know, there were some questions. We just wanna make sure that, Tiana and Kendra, from a legal and planner perspective, they've got their finishing touches to put onto that. I gave you a glimpse of what other changes are to come, but are there any other items in there that you wanna address or change? I know there was one email, do you wanna address that?
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, we can put in there about the deed restriction. It's somewhat implied because of the, requirement that it comply with the uniform, housing affordability controls, but I think it's worth it to put it in there specifically, so I made a note to add that. The part about whether or not I struggle with it, the part about whether or not we add in that we're gonna contribute, because,
Should we wait for executive session?
you read my mind, cause because when you're putting out a proposal, you want to give the people who are going to be responding as much information as possible, right? Because you want them to have as much information as possible so that they can respond and give you the best proposal possible. So, with that in mind, you want them to know what the township may or may not be willing to, contribute to the project. But by the same token, we wanna know what they're going to be able to bring to the project, right? So it's almost like a chicken and the egg with this project, which is
Well,
where I'm struggling.
Could it not be
a little.
iterative? So, as far as the first pass on the RFP, do it without that language, and if the results are not what we desire, then we can always amend it and go second
Yeah, we
pass
can.
on the RFP.
Yeah, that,
I mean, to the extent that the project or any project is self-standing, right? So the merits internally sort of warrant the project. We could have a developer who says, I'll do it, right? So, I mean, you never know.
But to your point before, if they are experienced affordable housing developers, they're gonna know that there's an expectation, yeah.
right. So, okay, I'll remove the language, that's fine. It was a struggle when I was thinking it through, because my inclination is always to put as much information as possible, because you want them to be able to respond, but it was a chicken and the egg situation. So
Is
we'll
this a
remove it.
sentence, or that, it was, in
Yeah.
section 1 that says the township anticipates contributing funds from the township before, I mean, I don't think it's as offensive, only because we've, both in our plan, this plan, last plan, the resolutions, the ordinances, it's kind of expected that that's gonna happen regardless, and I think it's a good thing to actually put in there, so that way, when we're comparing, and maybe we put that as part of the requirements to of what they're telling us, is how much they're expecting, right? The person that's saying, well, we're gonna expect $1 from the township, and then they come back, we're expecting 100,000 from the township, that gives us criteria to evaluate how much are they actually anticipating us to contribute, because I think it's unreal to think that we're not gonna contribute anything. It's really,
Yeah.
in any project, and even just from preliminary conversations, every project, whether it's a big developer of a large project or even a small one, is expecting some sort of a contribution, because they know it's 100% affordable housing, it's not gonna be possible absent funds. And so, if we put that in there, but we tweak it such that they have to say, okay, what are you asking for from the town, that's an evaluation criteria for us to then decide, okay, do we want this person or that person, and for them to really show a full accounting of, okay, here's how much money we're willing to pitch in, and here's what, where the gap is. So it gives us a more complete picture of their proposal.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I was even, and I, ran the gamut. So we already asked for the pro forma with the total development costs and source of funds, right? So it alludes to that anyway,
Yeah, so
but it's not.
maybe rather than saying the township anticipates contributing funds, put in that portion says,
Including,
specify,
yeah.
How much you're requesting, or,
I would prefer that, as opposed to upfront,
Right.
we're just
Because I
like,
think it's a given that
just opening
any
the wallet right up
developer's
front.
gonna be
I'd
looking,
rather, yeah.
yeah.
that part of the criteria is how much, how
Yeah.
they can structure this in a way, cause if they're really good at what they do, they hopefully have a myriad of
Yep.
financing sources, funding sources. So I'd like to, so the expectation is that's part of the decision, and their ability to come up creatively with funding, that would be. Did I take one more? Okay, I think we all understand each other.
Does that help? I think taking
Yeah.
that sentence out and then putting that in the
Yeah, I feel
kind of
better about
evaluation
that.
criteria of the proposal. Yes. I'm sure I've got like 10 text messages from Alex telling me to turn my mic on. Was there anything else in the RFP, RFQ?
No, those are my two.
One thing I just wanted to make sure that everyone's on board with is the plan is to subdivide it and for them to do the work once they own it, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Subdivide from the police station.
right.
Yeah, but the expectation is they would maintain the property, so right now,
No, they would own the property, right?
Yeah, to be
Right.
needed to know.
yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is, feel like it was 3 acres, and we split off an acre for Arbor Green. I thought that it was separate 2 acres already, now I'm thinking about it. But the point being, if they build on, you know, a quarter of an acre, they're still maintaining the surrounding, whatever it is deemed appropriate for them to maintain.
Yeah, whatever, I mean, we'd have to, it would have to be subdivided, and we've tried to obviously do it in a way that it's a conforming lot or whatever, all these things. And then that whole parcel is their responsibility for maintenance, operate, because the way it's structured is, and for funding purposes, for them to secure funding and all this stuff,
Yeah.
they would need to own the land.
Mhm.
So,
I guess the piece I'm missing is what is it subdividing from, because I thought it was
The
already
no,
separate.
it's-
Is this
Goes
police
around Arbor Green? Is that what?
no, the police, as I could, hold on.
station? Cause I really thought we had done that when, cause originally, when we had Arbor Green, I thought we were doing the 3 acres, and then we took back 2, and the 2 is the state park site, and then the rest. Cause we would've never granted them the 3 acres to begin with if it included the
Just
police
for Arbor
station.
Green.
But we don't need to resolve that now, right? We can get bypass on whether or not it's subdivided, or you need to know.
It does need, I know that it does need, we have
Okay.
reviewed it, I know when Kendra, John, and I were
Yeah.
look at, we know it does need to be subdivided,
Okay,
definitely.
it's just weird
Um,
you know, it's just sort of compared to what we had done in the past, just seems so out of sync with what was done.
So the question though, and, you know, it actually kinda came up with, if I'm not mistaken, it predated me though, or just around when I started with, the group homes. It was sort of the sequence of, I think that's also part of what you're asking is, you know, it's gotta be subdivided, also who's gonna do the subdivision, cause I think somebody, at one point, remember that was an issue, Greg, you and I were talking about that with, Nouvelle and the group homes. There was some later negotiation to have them be the ones that came to the planning board to do the subdivision, rather than the township and our professionals doing the subdivision. It was put on them. Does anybody recall that, or no?
Yes, I recall
With
that.
Nouvelle, yeah.
And
So
I'm putting in
that's-
here that
she's trying to
it's,
address it, that essentially
it's them, they're gonna get the
gonna
subdivision.
obtain the subdivision, it's
Yeah.
their responsibility, and
Cause they have to get the site plan approval anyway, so they're gonna get a subdivision and site plan approval. And then then we convey the property, and then they
Yeah,
construct.
cause it's also
So
the
this
police
is-
station,
I
and
know
then
it's-
it's Arbor Green, and then.
so there's Arbor Green, that's kind of
Yeah.
an envelope, it's the donut hole, and there's the police department, and then there's the skate park, so it's almost
goes
like.
around.
Oh, it's a U.
Yeah,
Oh, got it,
so it would need to be subdivided.
okay.
So I should know the answer to this question. I don't. By subdividing, do we trigger any issues with the DEP as far as our grandfathering rights?
For the development on that?
But yeah. the sub-
No, at least from what John and Kendra had discussed, and John had reviewed that, it shouldn't, affect it. If I'm understanding what you're referring, based off of the wetlands and
Yep.
all that,
Mhm.
John, doesn't think it would.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, those were I wanted to make sure that that was clear, that we were not gonna lease, we were gonna subdivide, and we were gonna get a fee title. It just makes it so much easier. I mean, we don't want any of that, muddies the water for us to, and I don't know, for funding, I wanna use it for them, so I just thought that that would be better. And then there's other technical things that you, Kendra and I can deal with. But that was a big thing, and then, no, I didn't have any other, a lot of the 30 years in there, so it's clear, very clear.
I appreciated having all of your questions and then the edited version, cause you could see the iteration,
Yeah.
and that was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Shows you there's actual work going on behind the scenes.
I'm in professional services, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
All right, so we'll hopefully have the resolution, will be accompanied by a final draft though, but for the next meeting. And then the other one is the cost of living adjustment for the non-union employees. That's the annual resolution that we do, and I will send, because I got the request from Committeewoman Ewald about last year's numbers, so I'll send you the resolution from last year, what that looks like, but it's consistent with what we've been doing in previous years. It's budgeted, and every year I try to anticipate, and this is for very few employees, because it is, like I said, the non-union, and I'll tell you, just so you know, the total impact of this is only $64,000, $64,468. What this resolution does beyond just the kind of typical 3% cost of living adjustment, there are a few changes outside of that, and that is reclassifying, because we've, over the years, some of the subcode officials and the inspectors in the construction office, some were hired as hourly, some were hired at a set rate, a salary for, again, part-time, but salary. And then over the years, the number of hours that they've been working, their required shift has increased over the years. And so their rate has just been calculated based off of that stipend. So since I've been here, all the new ones have been hired as an hourly. So I'm trying to make it consistent in this one. So that's why you'll notice a new section at the end of this draft, which is all of the subcodes and inspectors listed as hourly. And that's really the only substantial change outside of, there was an addition of one which was called a video camera operator supplement or something like that. I came up with a title for it. We've got Alex, as you know, she's listed at the beginning, but because the land use boards have started to want to televise and utilize live streaming, we've bounced back and forth between sometimes who's available. So that is an hourly beyond the initial just kind of township committee meetings. So that's why that position was added there as an hourly. And we also added the crossing guards as well. So that was something that's come up in recent years, so we've included them in this as well. But if anybody has any other questions or needs more information, let me know, but I will send you, actually I think I just hit send on that resolution, so you should all get a copy of that for last year.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? Okay, and then moving on, library capital project. Deputy Mayor, was there any updates you wanted to provide to the committee? I know that just the next meeting, we're looking to have the library present.
Yes, if, I would like to have the opportunity for the library to present what they're asking, what the plans are, and bring everybody up to date so that the committee can deliberate on next steps, specifically to a couple things. The library itself, the participating municipalities, et cetera, so that we can really get everybody aligned. I think it's very important to do that quickly. So next meeting would be terrific, so they can have them ready to present.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, moving on. Clerk's report. No questions were received. Anything for the clerk? Okay. Construction building report also received. No questions. I'm sorry. Report was provided. No questions. Anything anyone want to bring up there? Okay. Engineering. We covered that. Finance. Capital ordinance. So the next meeting, excuse me, for May 24th, 26th, we're looking to introduce the capital ordinance. This capital ordinance is going to be a borrowing ordinance. Okay, we did set aside money. I'm sorry, no, this one is not a borrowing ordinance. I apologize. This is all coming out of our capital improvement fund. We're trying to minimize how much we borrow, as last year and coming years there's major expenses coming up, but this is largely a public safety and public works ordinance. A bulk of it is for our fire departments and police department, and the remainder for some equipment for DPW to continue their landscaping and snow operations as they do every year. Any questions on that? resolution that follows that is to amend the capital budget. So every year, you know, we do the operating budget, we include a rough estimate of what our capital plan is for the next couple of years as required. And then once we firm that up, after meetings with all the department heads and the finance committee, we narrow it down, solidify that, we amend the capital budget to reflect what we're gonna be actually doing. So, that's just, gonna follow, I think you've got a draft of that, and that's based on the spreadsheet that was prepared by Debbie. Any questions on either of those?
That's still a moving target though, particularly in light of the discussions we've had on paving, et cetera, so.
Yeah, well, so the paving though, because we've got old capital funds
Okay,
set
that's
aside,
okay.
so that, you know, we've got that, that's what we're
Yes,
using for this
okay.
year.
Yes, understood.
So this is firm unless we wanna change anything.
See, just a question,
Yeah.
so, as a matter of planning and looking down the
Yes.
road, I highly appreciate we make commitments, for, substantial investments for public safety. Over the next several years, and I'm not quite sure what that is, whether it's 3 or 7, as we, as we take on more debt, do you look at what the cumulative debt service obligation is over the next, I don't know, 7 years, particularly? So I envision sort of this, like, you know, big bulge in the snake kind of working its way through, and, you know, over the next 7 years, if and when these fire trucks come online, thankfully we don't have to put any significant money down, but when they do come online, I think we have to have the money to pay for it. What that debt service the cumulative debt service obligation looks like, because I think in 27 it may get pushed out by year. It's like 5.6, 5.8 million, and then every other year it's something like close to, you know, $1.5 million, 2 million. In total, I thought it was something like 14, 15 million. But that might include the sewage treatment stuff too. I can't remember if I roll those numbers in.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
mean, we
different,
do-
right? That the financing on that
Yeah.
is through the, like not the iBank, what's it called again?
Yeah, no, it's the.
Oh, it's the iBank,
WBC,
yeah.
yeah, it would be the iBank, yeah, that's correct. No, you're right. Yeah, we do look at that, I mean, both in the finance committee, one of the tabs in the workbook is, essentially to hold that schedule. So we look at the hold that schedule through the life of every note and every, bond. So we look at those. We also have some, I believe, next year, some is dropping off as well. So we were always looking at what that is, and that's why it's also, you know, good to try to keep that level. You know, you wanna look at how you keep that level. And that's why even this year, when we were talking about in finance, like, what am I shifting from this year to next year? I met with some departments and, you know, they didn't get everything they wanted. I said, listen, we gotta try to keep it within this range for this year, next year, trying to keep it within that range, you know, same in the fire departments, and they're all cooperative. There were actually some things that were requested that were on target for this year, but then we look at, okay, well, by the time you get the apparatus spec'd out and designed and get a firm quote and all these things, when do you really need that authorization? So we do go through all of that, and we do some projections and look, as I said, for the next, instead of looking for almost 20 years out based on all of these, and Debbie and with bond counsel and our financial advisor and our auditor are also looking at when's the best time to, you know, roll over notes, and when's the best time to bundle them for bonding. So
And we don't have anything burning off in the next couple of years, I don't think.
I think
right?
we've got
Do we?
something dropping off next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we've got a couple 100,000 dropping off next year.
Okay.
But that'll be coming on just around the same time that we
Yes,
will be
yes.
borrowing
Yeah.
for.
Fully aware of
Because
that,
we
yeah.
authorized for the 2 apparatus, I think that's what you were mentioning, the
Yes.
numbers, we authorized them, but we haven't financed them because we didn't want that money just sitting around, and borrowed, and we didn't need to make the payment until we take delivery. So we'll probably be taking delivery sometime next year, for at least one of them, and that's coincidentally just gonna work out with when this is dropping off. So when I'm asking them to submit their requests for the next 7 years, and I'm reviewing them, with Debbie, we're looking at, okay, what is it you need next year, and what can be pushed off, so we can try to keep that level with what's dropping off. It's not always perfect, and sometimes it's just, you can't control it, but we do look at all of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? One thing that came to my attention tonight, that's not agenda, and I'd like to say it's fairly, easy. P card, if you recall the P card, the purchasing card, it's essentially like a credit card, but it's not. It's almost functions like a debit card with a lot of controls. That's managed and heavily regulated by the state. We can't just go to American Express and say we want a credit card. We go through the state's vendor. The state bids this out. They have a vendor that has to follow all these regulations. We have to adhere to all these terms. So we've been with Bank of America. We just started that, I want to say maybe 2-3 years ago, brought that in. It's helpful for things like Zoom's recurring, charges, the website, the domain charge, all the things that are tech-based that we just can't, otherwise it requires an employee putting it on their card and requesting reimbursement. So we got that P card. Bank of America lost the contract with the state. They just notified us today that the deadline is the end of this month, I believe. And so we have to get set up with a new vendor, and that new vendor is US Bank. So if there's no objections, then I'd like to add a resolution. We have to do a resolution to now sign on to the new vendor. So if that's okay, I'd like to add that for the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If you need any more information on that, I'll try to get you some more information for the regular meeting, but if you need any more, let me know. Thank you. Police report was provided, no questions received, anything we'll talk about now? Okay. We will be, based off of a discussion, we will be having an ordinance for the next meeting to adjust the table of organization of the police department. We'll provide some more information for the public on that.
Maybe I missed it.
Yeah.
Under administration, you have resolution COLA?
That's a cost of living adjustment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. No problem.
I'm like, what contract is that?
Are we with civil business?
Oh, yeah, I do, really.
Public Works, anything there? Okay. Under that, we'll have a resolution, as we discussed in the exec, resolution to authorize a contract with a licensed operator for the sewer utility. Tax collector, fairly routine resolution for outside lien redemption. Any questions there? And tax assessor, any questions? I know Glenn's been including updates on the tax reval in his reports, so I just want to highlight that. It's been going well, good entry rate.
Yep.
That's good.
They've completed 67% of all the property inspections, hoping to be completed by end of August. And 65% of those have allowed entry. So.
Do we know what's normal?
I don't
mean,
know
that's
What's normal these days?
No, but I
I don't-
mean,
you
it
know,
sounds,
what's
it
typical
sounds
for
good.
them,
I
but
just
yeah.
don't, yeah, I'm just curious what's,
That might be also related to people that aren't home.
Sure.
And they're circling back now
Yeah,
with the second round. So I don't know if that's first pass,
right.
hit rate
Okay,
versus
sorry, I didn't mean to grill you.
second.
From my perspective,
It doesn't get that detailed.
It sounds very positive to me
Yes.
too.
Yeah, I can add, I don't know, from my perspective, when I say it's good, it's just that, given that we had a later start
Sure.
because of the winter, and given our timeline, we're, I would say, almost ahead of schedule, because, when we had the timetable, we were hoping to wrap this up by the fall, at least all the inspections, and for where we're at right now in May, again, given the late start with snow, it's a good number.
Yeah. Thanks.
And just a reminder, so those tax letters go out end of October, early November?
I believe so.
I feel like they didn't have much of a window, because then they have to respond pretty quickly by the end of the year, or if they're gonna challenge it.
I think the preliminary letters are going out November 10th
Okay.
with the new valuation. And then that gives them an opportunity, I believe, till January.
Correct, yeah.
I just remember it's a very, it's sort of the holidays, but not much time.
If there are no further questions then, that concludes the workshop, and then we just have one last item for executive.
Second hearing of citizens.
Yes. Okay, I'd like to open the second hearing of citizens. The same rules apply as previously stated. Mr. LeConte, are there any hands raised?
We do not have any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, no hands raised in the audience, so we can close the second hearing of citizens. Is there a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Mr. Alperowitz,
Yes.
Mr. Choi,
Yes.
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Rowland.
Yes.
Motion passes, and I do not believe that we're doing any action following the executive session.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. Good night.